In this video, you're going to learn about the best dividend ETFs in Canada. Hey, how's it going? My name is Chris Liu and I'm the creator of wealthawesome.com. Are you looking for an easy way to generate some passive income? Buying dividend stocks is a good way to go. Better yet, you should look at buying dividend ETFs to get even more diversification. By tracking indices of dividend-paying stocks, Canadian dividend ETFs provide investors with the chance to grow your overall wealth by capital appreciation and income through dividends from underlying companies. Picking out the best dividend ETFs in Canada can be challenging because the number of available ETFs keep increasing each year. Each ETF has a unique strategy for providing investors with exposure to dividend income. So here's the list of what I think are the best Canadian dividend ETFs currently available. Number 1, Vanguard Canadian High Dividend Yield ETF. This ETF tracks the performance of the FTSE Canada High Dividend Yield Index before fees and expenses. The index consists of various Canadian equity securities that have a high dividend yield. The ETF employs a passively managed approach to high dividend yield, large, mid, and small market cap Canadian stocks, and it diversifies across various sectors of the economy. The ETF uses efficient and cost-effective index management techniques, and it pays investors monthly dividends. Number 2, iShares Core MSCI Canadian Quality Dividend Index ETF. This ETF tracks the performance of the MSCI Canada High Dividend Yield 10% Security Capped Index. It seeks to provide investors with long-term capital appreciation by selecting a portfolio of securities with a high-quality balance sheet and a track record of consistent earnings in the past. The stocks that make up the ETF have the common characteristic of growing dividends and above-average dividend yields. Designed to be a long-term core holding, this ETF focuses entirely on Canadian assets in its portfolio with a significant allocation to equities in the financial sector. Number 3, Horizons Active Canadian Dividend ETF. This ETF seeks long-term total returns, and its approach consists of using reliable dividend-paying assets. Idea is to use consistent income and modest long-term capital growth assets for consistent capital growth for its investors. The ETF targets companies that don't just provide excellent appreciation, but also long-term dividend growth. It focuses on companies across various sectors and industries. This ETF focuses on stocks of major companies in North America that offer a higher than average dividend yield and have excellent prospects of increasing its dividends. It could also hold 10% of fixed income securities as well. Number 4, BMO Canadian Dividend ETF. Managed by the Bank of Montreal, this income-producing asset seeks to provide investors with a chance to benefit from exposure to the performance of a yield-weighted portfolio of Canadian dividend-paying stocks. The ETF focuses on targeting a portfolio of Canadian equity securities with the potential of healthy, long-term appreciation and dividend growth. The ETF provides its investors with monthly dividend income from the underlying diversified assets. It's classified as medium risk and it's had great performance over the years, and it provides investors with a relatively reliable income. Number 5, iShares S&P TSX Canadian Dividend Aristocrats Index ETF. This ETF seeks to replicate the performance of the TSX Canadian Dividend Aristocrat Index before expenses and fees. This index primarily consists of dividend-paying stocks or income trusts listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange that are also constituents of the S&P Canada Broad Market Index. The equity securities in this index are selected based on a reliable track record of annually increasing dividend payments for at least the last 5 years. So that's what gives it its dividend aristocrat status. The ETF also pays dividends every month. Number 6, iShares Core TSX Composite High Dividend Index. This ETF is managed by BlackRock and it seeks to provide investors with an exposure to the income from high-quality dividend-paying stocks in Canada. The ETF provides a monthly dividend income to investors through its focus on a diversified portfolio of Canadian companies in its holdings that have excellent long-term capital growth potential across various sectors of the economy. Designed to be a long-term foundational holding, it's a low-cost ETF with a relatively high-risk and high-reward approach by replicating to the extent possible the performance of the TSX Equity Income Index. Number 7, iShares Canadian Select Dividend Index ETF. This index tracks as closely as possible the performance of the Dow Jones Canada Select Dividend Index. It's another ETF launched and managed by BlackRock, and it seeks to provide investors with strong long-term capital appreciation. While the underlying assets within the ETF consist of diversified assets across many sectors of the economy, there's a larger share of investments in the financial sector, with more than 50% of its weighting in finance. The ETF seeks to provide exposure to 30 high-quality companies in Canada, and they all have high dividend yields. Number 8, Invesco Canadian Dividend Index ETF. This ETF seeks to replicate the performance of the Nasdaq Select Canadian Dividend Index before expenses and fees. The fund's portfolio mainly consists of Canadian equity securities with a high liquidity and a reliable track record of growing dividend payouts. The fund has a 95% exposure to Canadian companies divided between both equities and income trusts, but it also allocates 5% to companies from other countries around the world. So it's not just North America. It has a portfolio diversified across various sectors, and it pays investors monthly dividends. So if you're looking for global exposure, this is a good option. Number 9, BMO Canada High Dividend Covered Call ETF. This one is a very unique ETF. It invests in not only some of the highest quality companies in Canada and provides substantial dividend income to investors, but it also has a very unique strategy. The ETF typically has a higher yield and it would carry a more substantial degree of risk, but the unique strategy here is that it mitigates this downside risk by using covered call options. It holds long positions on the assets within a portfolio and writes call options on the assets, so the downside is limited. But the downside of this strategy is it also diminishes the gains if the price moves above the strike price. But the fund provides a high dividend yield, so it's a good option for high income. The fund focuses on Canadian dividend-paying stocks, and it also makes it eligible to benefit from tax credits through accounts like the TFSA. Number 10, First Asset Morningstar Canada Dividend Target 30 Index ETF. That's a bit of a mouthful. It definitely wins the award for longest name, but it's a fund that seeks to replicate, to the extent possible, the performance of the Morningstar Canada Target Dividend Index. The fund invests in equity securities of the largest Canadian companies with high liquidity based on research generated by Morningstar. It's ideal for investors who seek regular quarterly cash flow and can handle medium risk to their portfolio. The fund also provides investors with exposure to a diversified portfolio of Canadian dividend-paying companies. Number 11, CI First Asset Active Canadian Dividend Common Unit ETF. This ETF is a fund that seeks to provide unit holders with long-term returns through healthy capital appreciation and regular dividend income. The fund consists of an actively managed portfolio of primarily dividend-paying and other securities issued by Canadian companies on the TSX. It provides monthly dividend payments to unit holders, and up to 30% of the fund's asset allocation can be towards foreign securities. The overall portfolio is heavily diversified across all 10 sectors of the economy. A majority of the best Canadian dividend ETFs, as you can see, consist of BlackRock asset management funds because it's one of the company's most prominent portfolio managers and it manages some of the leading funds in Canada. There are significant ETFs issued by other providers available as well. Each of them has a unique strategy to provide unit holders with capital growth through the appreciation of underlying stocks and dividend growth. The right knowledge of the best Canadian dividend ETFs in Canada should make it easier to pick out the ideal ETFs that you can add to your portfolio. It's important for you to help meet your goals of creating a robust overall ETF portfolio, and dividend stock ETFs are a good way to go. Alright, so if you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be putting out new content every week. Also, make sure you check out the blog, wealthawesome.com. It goes into this topic in way more detail, and it also has many other topics for Canadians to look at. Make sure to check out the next video, and thanks for listening.